Hello, my name is Shinka. Welcome to my channel. We are still reading The Warriors Into the Wild by Erin Hunter. We are just starting at chapter 9, which is right after Firepaw broke the warrior code, but we found out much devastating news. Shadow Clan potentially drove out Wind Clan, to which, to their knowledge, that's not happened before, to their recent knowledge. Okay. And I'll explain about that at the end. Let's get to reading. I'd go and see Yellowfang if I were you, whispered Graypaw as Longtail strode away. She doesn't look very happy. Firepaw glanced over at the old she-cat. She was still laying beside High Rock. Graypaw was right. She was glaring at him. Well, here goes, he mewed. Wish me luck. You'll need the whole of StarClan on your side for this one, answered Graypaw. Call out if you need a hand. If she looks like she's going to get you, I'll sneak up behind her and whack her on the head with a stiff rabbit. Firepaw purred with amusement and trotted off towards Yellowfang. His cheerfulness quickly evaporated as he neared the injured queen. The old cat was clearly in a terrible mood. She hissed a warning and showed her teeth. Stop right there, kitty pet. Firepaw sighed. It seemed he was in for a fight. He was still hungry and beginning to feel tired. He longed to curl up in his nest for an afternoon nap. The last thing he wanted was to argue with this pitiful clump of fur and teeth. You could call me what you like, he meowed wearily. I'm just following Blue Star's orders. You are a kitty pet, though, aren't you? Yellowfang wheezed. She's tired, too, Firepaw thought. There was less fire in her voice, although her spite was as strong as ever. I used to live with two legs when I was a kitten, Firepaw replied calmly. Your mother a kitty pet? Your father a kitty pet? Yes, they were. Firepaw looked down at the ground, feeling resentment burn inside him. It was bad enough that members of his own clan still viewed him as an outsider. He certainly didn't have to answer to this foul-tempered prisoner. Yellowfang seemed to take his silence as an invitation to go on. Kitty pet blood is not the same as warrior blood. Why don't you run home to your two legs now, instead of looking after me? It's humiliating, being fussed over by a low-born cat like you. Firepaw's patience ran out. He snarled. You still feel humiliated if I were warrior born. You'd feel ashamed whether I was a precious she-cat from your own clan, or a wretched two-leg that picked you up off the ground. He lashed his tail from side to side. It's the fact that you need to rely on any cat that you find so humiliating. Yellowfang stared at him, her orange eyes wide. Firepaw carried on fiercely. You're just going to have to get used to being cared for until you're well enough to look after yourself. You spiteful old bone bag. He stopped as Yellowfang began to make a low, harsh, wheezing sound. Alarmed, Firepaw took a step towards her. The she-cat was trembling all over. Her eyes had narrowed into tiny slits. Was she having a fit? Look, I didn't mean, he began before he suddenly realized she was laughing. She mewed, a purr rumbling up from deep inside her chest. Firepaw didn't know what to do. You have a spirit, kitty pet, Yellowfang croaked, stopping at last. Now I'm tired and my leg hurts. I need sleep and something to put on this wound. Go and find that pretty little medicine cat of yours and ask her for some herbs. I think you'll find goldenrod poultice would help. And while you're at it, I wouldn't mind a few poppy seeds to chew on. The pain is killing me. Stunned by her change of mood, Firepaw turned quickly and sprinted towards Spotted Leaf's den. He had never been in this part of the camp before, and with his ears pricked, he padded through a cool green tunnel of the ferns that led into a small grassy clearing. A tall rock stood at one side, split down the middle by a crack wide enough for a cat to make its den inside. Out of this opening trotted Spotted Leaf. As usual, she looked bright-eyed and friendly, her dappled coat gleaming with 100 shades of amber and brown. Firepaw shyly mewed a greeting and reeled off Yellowfang's list of herbs and seeds. "I've got most of those in my den," replied Spotted Leaf. "I'll fetch some marigold leaves, too. If she dresses her wound with that, it'll keep off any infection. Wait here." "Thanks," Firepaw mewed as the medicine cat disappeared back into her den. He strained his eyes, trying to catch a glimpse of her inside, but the den was too dark to see anything. He could only hear the sound of rustling and smell the heady scents of unfamiliar herbs. Spotted Leaf emerged from the gloom and dropped a bundle folded in leaves by Firepaw's feet. "Tell Yellowfang to go easy on the poppy seeds. I don't want her to deaden the pain entirely. A little pain can be useful, as it will help me judge how well she is healing." Firepaw nodded and picked up the herbs with his teeth. "Thanks, Spotted Leaf," he mailed through the mouthful of leaves, then headed back through the fern tunnel into the main clearing. Tiger Claw was sitting outside the warrior's den, watching him closely. As Firepaw trotted over to Yellowfang carrying the herbs, he could feel the ambered eyes stare burning fur on the back of his neck. He turned his head and looked at Tiger Claw curiously. The warrior narrowed his eyes and looked away. Firepaw dropped the bundle beside Yellowfang. "Good," she meowed. "Now before you leave me in peace, find me something to eat. I'm starving." The sun had risen 3 times since Yellowfang had entered the camp. 3 days. Firepaw woke early and nudged Greypaw, who was still asleep beside him, his nose tucked under his thick tail. "Wake up," Firepaw mewed, "or you'll be late for training." Greypaw lifted his head sleepily and growled in reluctant agreement. Firepaw prodded Ravenpaw. The black cat opened his eyes immediately and leaped to his feet. "What is it?" he mewed, looking around wildly. "Calm down, Ravenpaw. It's time for training session," Firepaw soothed. Dustpaw and Sandpaw began to stir as well in their mossy nests on the far side of the den. Firepaw stood up and pushed his way out of the ferns. The morning was warm, and Firepaw could see a deep blue sky through the leaves and branches that overhung the camp. Today, however, a heavy dew glistened on the fern fronds and sparkled on the grass. Firepaw sniffed the air. Greenleaf was drawing to a close, and soon it would start to feel colder. He lay down and rolled in the earth beside the tree stump, stretching his legs and tipping his head back to rub it on the cool ground. Then he flipped over onto his side and looked across the clearing to see if Yellowfang was awake yet. She had been given a resting place at the other end of the fallen tree where the elders gathered to eat. Her nest lay tucked against its mossy trunk, out of the hearing of the elders, but in full view of the warrior's den across the clearing. Firepaw could just see a mound of pale gray fur rising and falling in time to a gentle rumble of sleep. Greypaw trotted out of the den behind him, followed by Sandpaw and Dustpaw. Ravenpaw appeared last, with a nervous glance around the clearing before he emerged fully into the open. "Another day looking after the mangy old flea bag, eh, Firepaw?" meowed Dustpaw. "I bet you wish you were out training with us." Firepaw sat up and shook the dust from his fur. He wasn't going to let himself get annoyed by Dustpaw's taunts. "Don't worry, Firepaw," murmured Greypaw. "Bluestar will have you back in training before long." "Perhaps she thinks the kitty pet is better off staying in camp tending to the sick," mewed Sandpaw rudely, tossing her sleek ginger head and throwing him a scornful look. Firepaw decided to ignore her barbed comments. "What is Whitestove teaching you today, Sandpaw?" he mewed. "We're doing battle training today. He's going to teach me how a real warrior fights," Sandpaw replied proudly. "Lionheart's taking me to the great sycamore," meowed Greypaw, "to practice my climbing. I'd best go. He'll be waiting." "I'll come with you to the top of the ravine," mewed Firepaw. "I have to catch breakfast for Yellowfang." "Coming, Ravenpaw? Tiger Claw must have something planned for you." Ravenpaw sighed and nodded, and then followed Greypaw and Firepaw as they trotted out of the camp. Even though his injury was completely healed, he still seemed to have a little enthusiasm for warrior training. I'm going to end it there. So the Supreme Court is very likely about to overturn Roe versus Wade in the United States. Roe versus Wade was a court case. Yes, abortion became legal from it, but it paved the way for many other cases under the name of privacy. There's a few amendments within the Constitution that don't specifically say privacy, but kind of hint towards it, and it was from that understanding that we were given the right to privacy in this country. Many things fall under that. The main thing I'm going to talk about today is the history of abortion in the United States. Now, see, their reasoning for overturning Roe versus Wade, and I have looked it up, you can look it up yourself, a reasoning was that it's not within the history of this country, essentially. It's not a tradition in history. But it wasn't until 1860, after the Civil War, that actually there was a real ban put on abortion. You see, it came over. It was practiced by the European colonies. Very frequently it was practiced. You can look at the newspapers and medical journals that were written back during the time of the 1700s and early 1800s. They advertised herbs that cause abortion. It was a part of life. Back then, medicine was generally practiced by women, midwives. It wasn't until after the Civil War that young white men decided, oh, hey, let's get some money and stuff from this, control and money, essentially. To which they also lobbied with the church as well back then, some of the churches. First, they made rules that black women could not get abortions done because they were back then slaves and quote-unquote property of their slave owners. White women could still get abortions, however, back then for a short time. So I don't know, I kind of find it funny that I guess anything before 1860 the Supreme Court doesn't consider part of this nation's history and traditions. Okay, whatever. It's up to the states, essentially. But there's a big problem with that. There's multiple states that are just awful. There's multiple states that, for example, would think it's okay that interracial marriage be banned or gay marriage be banned. Also, making abortion and all of this a felony because you're charging it as murder or homicide in these states, that's a felony. Now you cannot travel outside the country or vote. So a woman could have a miscarriage, be accused of causing the miscarriage herself, making it an abortion. That's a felony. Now she can't vote. Her voice is silenced. This has very far-reaching implications. This is just a small snippet. If you want my personal opinion on abortion, I don't believe in abortion. I feel like it's murder. That's just me. But Roe versus Wade is more than just about abortion. My personal belief is that there needs to be certain allowances because pregnancy is very glamorized, but the reality, pregnancy is dangerous. A lot of changes happen to the body, and the United States of America has the highest mortality rate when it comes to pregnant women and labor. For a first world country, we have the highest mortality rate. So we're adding the highest mortality rate for a first world country and forced labor, essentially. Forced birthing. That's forced deaths that's happening. Because many of these laws, these abortion bans, do not have exemptions for, say, if the baby is going to kill the mother. You see, the mother could have more babies, but she dies giving birth to this one. She orphaned this child, as well as possibly left her poor husband with whatever other kids they have. How is that pro-life? These politicians also do not vote to, increase food stamps or healthcare. They vote to slash these things. They vote to slash education, slash help, and at the same time, forcing us to birth more children. How is that pro-life? Pro-life is being for gun control. Pro-life is healthcare. Pro-life is actively caring about the lives of individuals. But these people that claim they are pro-life, they are not pro-life. They only care about the baby and fetus while it's unborn. As soon as that baby comes out of the belly, they don't care anymore. Their job is done. That baby is left to suffer whatever conditions it was born in. So, yeah, I'll leave it here. Tomorrow, we will continue chapter 9 of The Warriors. I hope you have a good day.